Hello, and welcome to the Enneagram in a Movie podcast, part of the Awareness to Action podcast network. This is the podcast that looks at one film in each episode and uses it to explain the 9 types and 3 instinctual biases of the Enneagram model of personality. One movie, one type. My name is Mario Sakura, and I'll be joined by Maria Jose Munita and Tamer Zanatti. We are the principals of Awareness to Action International, a global consulting and training company that specializes in practical applications of the Enneagram. You can find out more about us and our work at awareness-to-action.com. In the meantime, make some popcorn, sit back, and enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Enneagram in a Movie podcast. This time we are talking about the movie Defending Your Life and Ennea-Type Six, the movie that answers the question, how little of your brain do you need to use in order to be content with life on Earth? I'm Mario Sakura. As always, I'm with Maria Jose Munita.
Hi there.
And with Tamer Zanatti.
Hello, Mario. Hello, Maria. Hello, everyone.
So the movie Defending Your Life stars Albert Brooks, a comedian and stand-up comic, writer, director, and Meryl Streep. As was pointed out during our pre-show conversation, it stars a young Meryl Streep, which, again, points to our theme of picking movies that are not exactly new. This movie was released 30 years ago yesterday, on the day that we're recording this. And it stars, again, Albert Brooks, who also wrote and directed the movie, as Daniel Miller, an advertising executive who is killed in a car accident at a young age. I think he's 39 in the movie when he is killed, and ends up going into the afterlife to a place called Judgment City, where he is going to be evaluated to see if he gets to move on to the next place or if he has to be recycled, sent back to Earth to continue to work on his fear. So I like this movie. I think I'm a bigger fan of the movie than the two of you are. I will say that Rotten Tomatoes aggregate score is 97% positive among critics, although the audience score is less. It's around 70%. So it's a movie that was more popular with critics than it was with the audience. One of the things I liked about it was just the conceit of the movie, that in the afterlife you go on and you're evaluated to see if you dealt with the challenges that life brought your way or not. Okay. What did you guys think of the conceit of the movie in that way?
It's a fantasy. It's nice. I think it's a format that gives the director and the scriptwriter to use the imagination and actually deliver a message without having to be so realistic about it. And so I think it helped a lot to deliver the message.
Maria Jose?
I think it was smart. There were a lot of subtle messages given, and it for me it was very interesting how they kept saying, "We're not judging you," but it was a trial.
Judgment City.
Yes, Judgment City, and the building was Judgment something, and there was the defender and the prosecutor, but this is not judgment. Yeah. We're not judging you. So that was interesting.
Yeah, there was a line where he says to his defender, "So basically, I'm on trial for my life, right?" And he says, "Well, we don't like to think of it as a trial, but yes."
Yeah, I think it was the perfect movie for Type 6. I don't think I could find a better movie for it. Mm-hmm. It's in so many ways, because it's not only the Type 6 inner experience, but it is the inner conflict reflected in the different characters, I think. Makes it perfect to discuss 6, I think.
Yeah, and that was the motivation behind the movie. So I liked the movie, and you guys weren't as keen on it as I was. But it's it's certainly not Citizen Kane or anything. But it's a cute and it's a clever movie, and I like Albert Brooks and his humor, which is certainly not slapstick. It's kind of subtle and arch, and I thought Meryl Streep was very good in this. I thought her character was great, and she did a great job of it. A little interesting tidbit was that she went to him, heard about the movie he was writing, and asked for a part in it when they met at a party at some point. And he just thought, no way am I going to get Meryl Streep to be in this movie. And turns out she really did want to be in the movie. And I thought she did a great job with it. But the main reason we picked it is because it is the best movie I've ever seen that captures sickness, right? Yeah. And Albert Brooks is a six in real life, and at least as certain as I can be. And it's the movie as if someone said, you know what, let's write a movie about what it's like to be stuck in the head of a six, and film it. And this movie's it.
Yeah, I see that the passion, according to the traditional Enneagram, the passion, the fixation, and the virtue is like the main elements of the movie. This is what makes it the best movie for the six. So you see, the fear is the central topic. And yes. Being coward or, not doing things because of fear is really like a repetitive pattern that he's been trying for in the days that we have seen. And the transformation happens when he finds the courage and acts on it. So yes. That makes it the right movie for six.
Yes, for sure. And so the premise of the movie, right? Like I said, he dies in a car accident. It's an inglorious death. He gets into a head-on collision with a bus while listening to Barbra Streisand, of all things.
In his new car.
In his brand new, he's driving home from just having bought a Mercedes. BMW, and it's his birthday. So he wakes to find himself in Judgment City, right? Although he's barely awake, at the time, because there is this kind of humorous period where they can't move or talk or anything like that, and are just being wheeled around. He gets put into his hotel room. Basically, the premise is that he has a trial, although they don't like to call it a trial, to determine whether or not he sufficiently learned how to deal with his fear. Because according to the premise of the movie, that is the main thing that everybody on Earth is dealing with, right? How do I overcome my fear? Right. So again, it is very much a movie from the worldview of a six, right? This is my central issue, is dealing with fear and overcoming it, making that transition that Tamer and I talked about. Now, while there, as one might imagine, so there are no children there, because children, apparently, if they die, immediately get sent to the next stage. And plus, apparently, teenagers ruined the uniforms that they had to wear. So they didn't. The tupas, yes, thank you. And so they had to send teenagers to another place. Most of the people are fairly elderly in Judgment City. Daniel is one of the handful of young people, meets Meryl Streep's Julia, who is also there. And they fall quickly in love. They're there for, I think, 5 days, and have to decide what to do once they have fallen in love before they go on. So we'll get to those points, but that's basically the premise of the movie. Let's see, not a huge success, right? It's one of those movies that some people who like movies know about. Made about $16 million at the box office, which is not much. I couldn't even find any information about how much the movie cost to make, but it doesn't look like it was a hugely expensive movie. Albert Brooks is an interesting guy who's had an interesting career, right? So he's started in as a comedy writer, writing for TV shows and other comedians, became a stand-up comedian, started doing his own movies. He would write, produce, direct, and act in a handful of movies. Then went on to kind of be an actor in other people's movies. He actually plays a really great bad guy in a movie called Drive with Ryan Gosling. Just a scary, scary bad guy, which is about as opposite from this character as you could think, right? But he's very effective in that.
Yeah, that I was wondering why it wasn't too popular at the time. And thinking about what happens after we die, it's something that a lot of people wrestle with.
Uh-huh.
And this doesn't paint a pretty picture. It's kind of like a nightmare. And
interesting. Yeah.
So I don't think it's something that people want to watch, because it's really close to our hearts. It's something that people worry about. And then playing with this scenario, it's just not encouraging.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
To second Maria Jose, again, it's the central issue of the fear. So people would fear to watch this movie as well.
Yeah, because it's fantasy. I mean, it's science fiction, but not so much. It's something that you think about.
Yes, there's a sadness almost to this movie, right? There's and again, that's Albert Brooks's kind of style, is uncomfortable humor, right? You know, it's kind of funny, but kind of sad, scary, and tragic at the same time. So I can see that. Although I found the concept, you know, if there is an afterlife, you know, I think that's not such a bad one, right? I mean, that worst case scenario is you go back for another try to get it right, you know, and then you move on to another place. So anyway, so interesting concept. Again, it was well regarded by the critics. It got basically good reviews. The acting is good, but, you know, again, just not a movie that really took off. I think underdeserved. It was coming at a time, and I don't know what this was socially, where there were a lot of movies actually dealing with the afterlife at the time, right? I made a list of them recently, but I can't quite remember. But Ghost, for example, also came out with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze, and there were other movies like this asking sort of philosophical questions in trying to be a lighthearted way. So
if I am going to think about the afterlife, I prefer to think about Ghost than these one, to be honest.
Well, you know, okay, tomato, you know, chocolate and vanilla, right? So that's all right. Okay, so one of my favorite character actors appears in this movie, Rip Torn, who plays his defender, Bob Diamond. I will watch Rip Torn in anything. He played Artie in the Larry Sanders Show, and Gary Shandling, who made that TV series, is very much like Albert Brooks, very similar comedy style, awkward, Six-ish style. But I'll watch Rip Torn in anything. He just makes me laugh. Any reactions to Rip Torn from the two of you? Indifference?
No, not indifference. I think he was interesting and a bit different than the other characters. He was just making fun of everything, being mean, but sweet enough that you wouldn't get angry at him. He was just condescending, and that was funny.
Yes,
I love his sentence that you will not understand it every time, and at the end I was trapped in my inner circle of thoughts. Said, I told you wouldn't understand it.
Yeah, so, and that takes us to one of the other premises of the movie, right? Before we start talking about Type 6, one of the other premises of the movie was that humans only use between 3 and 5% of their brain, but as you go on from the next, you know, from one dimension to the next, you use increasingly larger parts of your brain. Okay. So I think, you know, Bob Diamond used 41% of his brain compared to Daniel's 3%. Well, 47? Yeah, okay, 47. And so there were a lot of these lines where, like, well, you wouldn't understand it, primarily because you don't have the capacity to understand it. It did seem kind of condescending and that way. But
when he was eating, he said, "No, you won't like it. It tastes like horse shit, right?"
Right. But, you know, but my brain is able to, you know, reformulate the taste so it tastes delicious, right? Is kind of what happened, you know. So, yeah. So Rip Torn, just a quick note about him. So he was a promising actor in the 60s and early 70s. And then, you know, but had a bit of a challenge with alcohol and drugs and, you know, not liking to follow rules of the law, you know, kind of derailed his career for a long time. And even the last time he was in the news, he got drunk, had a loaded gun, and broke into a bank at night, thinking he was trying to break into his house that he was locked out of, right? Or at least that was his defense. While he was convicted of disorderly conduct and trespassing, he didn't have to go to prison. He got a suspended sentence. So he was a colorful character in real life. I think he died recently, but I just love watching him. All right. So as Tamer mentioned already, and as Maria Jose said, this is very much a Six movie. If you want to understand Sixes, it will serve you well to watch this movie. Okay. Again, the classical Enneagram talks about fear being the vice of the six. And so fear is an emotion induced by perceived danger or threat, which causes physiological changes and ultimately behavioral changes, such as mounting an aggressive response or fleeing the threat. Okay. I thought that definition was interesting because it captures two things that we see in sixes, right? Either a phobic response or a counterphobic response. Usually people in the Enneagram world talk about phobic versus counterphobic sixes. I think that's a mistake in that pretty much all sixes are at times phobic and at times counterphobic, right? Meaning aggressive in the face of fear. And I think we saw that in Daniel as well during the movie, sort of this very much fearful element, but also this, aggressive element, right? Any thoughts on that?
So when I was watching the movie, I was struggling or thinking about his subtype, Daniel's subtype. And I think that he manifests both phobic and counterphobic kind of behaviors at different times. And I think that's the reality of the six. It's not one or the other. It's both in different situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the scene where he was driving the car before his death. I was like not understanding how does this relate to his character, and actually because he was so reckless in driving the car. I mean, not only at the moment of the accident, but even before that, he was like changing lanes without, and pissing everyone around him and so on. So and this looks like kind of counterphobic behavior as well.
Yeah. So I want to save the conversation about his subtype to the end of the podcast, because I do have some thoughts on that. But you're absolutely right. So there's this mythology that sixes are careful all the time and they never take any risks and, never, take their eyes off the road, for example. Okay. But if you know some real sixes, you realize that they kind of bounce around a lot, right? They can be, hyper vigilant and fearful, but then almost carelessly reckless at other times, right? It's almost as if they give up, the frustration. And when we talk about the six's connection to point 9, we talk about laziness versus irresponsibility. Irresponsibility and, laziness versus vigilance, okay? Where it's just, I stop caring for a while. And I don't care if this pisses you off. And in fact, I'm going to needle you and irritate you and piss you off a little bit just to see how you react. And there's a lot of that in Daniel, right? He, for example, when he heckles the comedian, right, and gives him a hard time, that's not a kind of what we would think of as something fearful, right, or of a timid person. So again, it's our view that all sixes, even though there is this issue about fear, are both phobic and counterphobic, and you can't rely on that as an indicator in any particular way. There are degrees, right? Some sixes are much more counterphobic, and they tend to fall into the transmitting domain, a kind of Mel Gibson character or, some others, right?
Awareness to Action offers a unique approach to applying the Enneagram professionally with leaders and organizations, as well as for personal development. What makes us stand apart is our Enneagram expertise and focus on understanding human nature.
We know people because we see people. And this is a skill set that can be taught and learned. Human nature is complex and simple at the same time. Our mission is to help people see clearly and act accordingly. Why? Because the ability to see ourselves and others clearly and honestly is essential. It enables us to act in more adaptive and useful ways.
The Multicultural Team in Awareness to Action will help you learn tools and practices to become more aware and also to understand and engage people more effectively. Learn more at awareness-to-action.com. Join us at 2021 for exciting learning opportunities.
So the fixation of the six is cowardice. Now, it's interesting, every time I see that word as a fixation and something to talk about, there's something that makes me want to stay really far away from it, because, boy, how could you to say that to somebody. How could you call someone a coward? There's no, greater insult almost. Okay. But there's an interesting definition here of cowardice, which is a trait wherein excessive fear prevents an individual from taking a risk or facing danger. Right? So it's that impulse to avoid taking a risk. And we will see this coming up in Daniel for sure, right? It's a theme, as Tamer pointed out. And then finally, courage is the virtue. And ultimately, the six is redeemed when they were able to tap into their courage. Okay? The awareness to action approach to the Enneagram. Maria Jose, why don't you tell us how we talk about the type 6?
So, as with the other types, we see the strategy of the six as a feeling, starting with a feeling need. In this case, is striving to feel secure. That need to feel secure affects the way they think and how they act. So in this case, when you're striving to feel secure, you think of ways that help you with that. So you will think of what could go wrong, what are the risks. So you look ahead and try to see all the holes or all the things that could make you feel insecure, and try to manage those risks and either avoid them or do something so that they are not risks anymore. They might look kind of for things that are hidden, that are not explicit, and all these things happen in their heads. Now, that makes them act in ways that are they look a bit more alert in their behavior. They seem pessimistic sometimes, although they think that they're realistic. They try to sometimes hold back so that they don't have to face those risks, and do things that are related to these thinking patterns, and then they rooted in this feeling need. Now, these can be adaptive or maladaptive. So it is good to think of those things. It is good to look ahead and see what could go wrong and do something about it. Now, when you overdo it, it could become maladaptive. So sixes manifest both things, the maladaptive and the adaptive behaviors rooted in these feeling need of trying to feel secure.
I think we see all of this in Daniel. We see the connecting points, certainly. We see there's a lot of 3 stuff going on in Daniel as well, right? Tamer, what did you see related to point 3 in Daniel during the movie? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, many situations, especially when it relates to his career, he was manifesting certain behaviors that are related to the 3. So it's like the rehearsal before facing his boss. He wanted to show how valuable he is to the company. Although, I mean, the actual situation was completely different, but it shows where does this, I mean, come from, the connection with the point 3. I want to show my outstanding work to the company. He's wanting to go and present to a large group of people. Although, again, when he implemented that, it was a complete disaster. But actually, having this into his process of thinking, and this is an opportunity that I want to excel at it, and then being held by his own fears is also a pattern. I don't know, with the 9, I have seen, I mean, lots of subtle, 9 connections, or being not really wanting to rest and not wanting to, not wanting to let go of his own guards toward things, especially in the dinner with Meryl Streep, where he was really scared.
Bite down.
Yeah, and like Meryl Streep wanted. I mean, she's not saying that, but it's like, I mean, come on. I mean, just relax, and he just don't want to relax.
Yes, because his prosecutor is watching him, and he is, he can't just relax and have dinner like a normal person. All he's thinking about is my prosecutor is watching from across the room, and he sees my date with an endless string of spaghetti that she won't bite down, right? And she's having too much fun at the restaurant, right? Which makes him feel uncomfortable. So and it's important, when we talk about these connecting points, that again, it's not like the 6 becomes a 3. It's that they start using that strategy of striving to feel outstanding as a way to feel more secure. And so they, look a little bit 3-ish, with the BMW, for example, that whole plot line of him buying the BMW in the beginning, and is, sort of taps into that as well. Okay. So first major scene I want to talk about was, when he wakes up in Judgment City, and he gets a phone call, right? He has no idea where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. He's wearing a tupa, which is a one-piece, I don't know, how would you describe that? Remember, Maria, do you have words for it?
Daughter, it's like a gown, yeah. So my daughter came into the room when I was watching the movie and said, "Why are they all wearing those things? What are those?" I couldn't explain. But what I thought it was funny about it's that they use those because they work on everyone. So it's something that they won't have a problem with those, because they're anticipating issues. So they have those tupas so that they fit on everyone.
Yes. One size fits all, no pockets, so you don't have to worry about carrying anything. Right?
And the other thing that I thought was funny was that right from the beginning, when they arrived at the hotel, the guy said, "You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry." It's like the message that it's everywhere.
Yes.
You don't need to worry about it today.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. And that's the worst thing you can tell a 6.
Yes.
If you tell me not to worry, it means that I have to worry about something.
Yes, absolutely right. So he wakes up in the morning, and while he's waiting, while he's kind of figuring out what's happening, he turns on the television and he starts seeing the shows, one of which is a game show called Face Your Fears. Again, hammering away on that theme. He gets the call saying that he has to go to meet with his defender, Bob Diamond. He goes down for breakfast. I just love the whole theme and the whole premise around food here, right? The idea is that the food is the best you've ever tasted. You can eat all you want. You'll never gain a pound, right? I mean, if that is not heaven, what is? So he goes down to breakfast and asks the waitress, "What's good?" She says, "Everything's good." He says, "I'll have the omelet." Takes a bite. It's the best thing he ever had. He has to rush off. Now, I have to give a little personal story here. He gets into the tram to go for the meeting, and there's the old woman sitting behind him, right? And she reaches up and rubs his head. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, Albert Brooks has curly hair, and she rubs his head and says, "You remind me of my little poodle," right? So my son has curly hair, kind of like Albert Brooks's. It's a little bit nicer, I think. But anyway, it's the same thing. So from the time he was 2 years old, I would walk up behind him, put my hand on his head and say, "You remind me of my little poodle," right? And for years, it just irritated him. And he had no idea why I was saying it, because we don't have a poodle. And so finally, about a year and a half ago, Defending Your Life is, now my son's 17, almost 18 now. Defending Your Life is on television. And when that scene is coming up, I call him into the room and I say, "Here, sit down, right?" And he says, "Why?" I don't, and that scene comes up and he looks at me and he says, "All these years, that is what you've been doing? Are you kidding me?" And just got up and walked out. So,
Didn't think it was funny.
He didn't think it was funny, no. And it was really a long way to go for a joke that only I enjoyed, right, for 14 years. But I'm okay with that. So anyway, so he goes to meet with Bob Diamond, who starts to explain.
So before that, I think that there's so many things that scream 6 and here before that happened. So it's, you can eat all you want, no consequences. It is heaven, but it's also taking your worries away. It's trying to help you relax and not worry. You won't gain a pound. You don't have to worry. The whole city has to look like, was meant to look like home for them, so that they wouldn't worry about it. It wouldn't make people anxious. And even when they call him, they tell him that he should take the tram so that he makes sure that he's in time. So it's everything about diminishing or minimizing the risks that just worry about.
Excellent point. So it's providing security, right?
Even the theme with the food, because I kept on trying to understand why do they stress that much on food. And then it came to me, because this is the basic fear. I mean, you ran out of food. I mean, you do everything not to run out of food.
So he meets Bob Diamond. Bob Diamond's telling him, what's going on. It was an interesting thing, too, that when he's getting off the tram, somebody tells him, if there's any problems, just let us know. There's a suggestion box on every corner. Right. So to help us, again, make it more secure for people. Right. So Bob Diamond explains to him that, the whole process, that he is being evaluated. It's not a trial, but it is. Not a prosecutor, but it is. Not judges, but they are. And he has to defend his life by arguing that he has overcome his fears. It is explained to him again about the brain thing. Now, you both know I have a pet peeve about this myth that humans only use 10% of their brain, right? What's the rest of it? Wood. No, you use all of your brain. That is a myth. For some reason, people seem to believe. So I had to get over that, part of this, and let my own, irritation.
Mario, it's a fantasy, Mario. You can
I
really
understand.
let go.
I understand, Tamer. I understand.
It's not a scientific movie.
I understand. So
I think what they meant here is really putting fears away in order to really think about all the opportunities that you have in life. I mean, living life. So I mean, the percentage has indicated somehow what you're holding yourself from because of the fears.
Yeah, good observation, right? It's this idea that we're cutting ourselves off from so much, right? Yeah, it's great. So the idea is that, again, there are many lifetimes that we go through. I loved when Bob Diamond would, when he said, dealing with fear, that's what you little brains do, right? And that's, and he kind of says to him, that's what we call you, or, behind your back, although he just said it to his face. Let's see what else here. He says that everybody on earth deals with fear. It's like a giant fog that sits on your brain and blocks everything, real feelings, true happiness. They can't get through that fear. But if you lift it, you're in for the ride of your life, which, again, is, what Tamer was saying, that it's fear that limits us from experiencing the world. To which Daniel says, my 3% is swimming. Let's see here. He explains to him that he's on trial, that he's going to have to defend or observe 9 days or 9 pieces out of his life. That's the premise. What the trial is they watch clips from their life, and everybody who's there has to see a different number depending on, what evidence is required. The strip club guy had to watch 15 days, whereas Meryl Streep's Julie, I think, only had to watch 5 days.
4.
Daniel was 4,
yeah.
Even worse, right? So Daniel was somewhere in the middle, and of course, he's constantly worried about, is that a lot or not? Right? Is 9 days good or is it bad?
Yeah, and there's also something about guilt that he says that he's going to be found guilty, and Bob tells him not to think in those terms. Although for a 6, and I'm struggling myself as a 1 to not think in those terms of feeling guilty for it. But right. I was trying to get out of that mindset and think, if you're not guilty, what are you? But for 6s is okay, either I do what's expected or not. And if I don't, I feel guilty for it.
Yeah, the risk of the verdict, being judged as guilty or not guilty. Yeah. I like so much the sentence that you mentioned right now, Mario, because I feel that somehow the scriptwriter wanted to define fear. And this is where he said about the cloud, all what holds you from, that blocks everything, and so on. So it was like a central to, this is what we mean by fear. And this is what fears results. I mean, it's like blocking all of these beautiful emotions in life. Yes. So I liked it very much in this conversation.
Yeah, it really an important point here, right? It's the fear that, holds us back in so many ways. And again, we all experience it. This is the thing we have to constantly remind ourselves about the Enneagram, is that the reason I think each of these movies is effective, what we've done with it is that it not only tells us about sixes, but it tells us about us, right? Because we all wrestle with fears, whether we're sixes or not. It's just that we wrestle with things in different proportions from each other, and this is six world, whereas the rest of us are just kind of visitors sometimes, or maybe spend part of our time there. There's a lot of paranoia here as well, right? When he's sitting down with Bob Diamond after their first meeting, and he's kind of looking him over. Actually, I think he's looking him over in the office, and he says, "What's wrong? What did I do? Is something wrong?" Right? And he's, "No, I'm just looking at you. That tupa looks good on you." Right? Not everybody does. So, kind of a phoniness for sure to Bob.
And when they talk about teenagers and they say that they don't go there because they damage the tupas.
They damage the tupas, right? And then they're sitting over breakfast, and he starts asking him about whether or not he gave to charity, right? And he why is that? Is it bad? I mean, how much? What's a lot, right? He says, I gave money to homeless people, but they don't give you receipts, So he's trying to create this story about how he's, actually charitable, even if he wasn't.
And then Bob says, "Don't worry about it again."
Yes, don't worry about it. He meets Meryl Streep that evening. He wanders into a comedy club as he's looking for things to do. Again, they are there for 5 days, and so they're in court during the day, but they have free time to wander around, take advantage of all the amenities that it has to offer. Judgment City, bowling alleys, comedy clubs, past lives pavilion, which we will come back to. So he meets Meryl Streep at a comedy club with perhaps the world's, maybe even the universe's worst comedian. And at some point, Daniel heckles him a little bit. But the thing I find when they start talking and they're off on their own, he can actually be very charming and sweet. Right. I mean, when he kind of relaxes a little bit and, he has this sort of tenderness to him when he lets his guard down, which is another thing I see in sixes very often, right? It's just this charming, sweet, kind quality that makes them very likable and attractive in a very, indeliberate or non-deliberate way. Thoughts on that?
I agree. And what I saw in her, it's what I said about the movie in general. I think that she probably represents everything he would like to do if he would let go, that she's just not concerned about the things that he is. And I think that makes him feel more relaxed, because it's just doesn't remind him of any of the things that he has in his mind.
Yeah. Let's talk about Julia for a second, the Meryl Streep character. First of all, she's way too good looking for him, and this is where he expressed his theory that people should only marry someone who is just attractive enough to turn them on, because if they're more attractive than that, it's only asking for trouble, right? Which is, again, not a particularly optimistic perspective on picking a potential spouse. Right?
Yeah, it's like finding the risk in the most beautiful situations. I mean, even when you have an advantage, you would look for the risk inside the advantage.
But I think it was also based on his experience with his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
That was very beautiful and didn't work out.
Yeah, and he said she was far too beautiful for for him and his needs. But not only being attractive in a young Meryl Streep sort of way, she was basically a saint, right? I mean, when they're showing her life, it was all about her rescuing puppies and pulling kids from burning buildings and all this sort of stuff. Thoughts on her Enneagram type?
I thought she's a 9.
A 9, okay.
Yeah.
I saw her as a 7.
Yeah, I felt a bit of 7 myself, right? There was, there was a kind of an alertness and a joy and a happiness and, all these things. Argument maybe could be made for 2. Right, I could see some 9 stuff there as well, but I remember when I first watched it years ago, I was thinking 2. But I've come to lean more towards 7, not the most defined character, but I would agree. And, and again, which sort of makes it this opposite of the 6 in a way, right? We always talk about how the 6 looks for what could go wrong, whereas the 7 looks for what could go right.
Yeah, and she says things like that, like I make things kind of go right. I fix things or I take care of things.
Yeah.
And there's also such enjoyment in what she does and when she eats and everything. It's just amazing, and she savors it. So to me, it reminded me of the Seven and the lightness, because there was something about something a bit one-ish as well. I saw like trying to, but she was light and playful.
She ended up in Judgment City because she tripped by a swimming pool, banged her head, rolled into the pool, and drowned, which was kind of an embarrassing way to go. And she expressed that she was really pissed off about it because she was a good swimmer. Are you interested in learning more about our approach to the Enneagram? Go to awareness-to-action.com and check out our certification program. We offer a clear, concise, business-friendly, and science-minded approach while maintaining the depth of traditional approaches to the system. At Awareness to Action International, we're the leading innovators in the theory and pragmatic applications of this system to all aspects of the work environment, including leadership and personal development, team building, diversity and culture, and managing change. However, this approach is not just for the business world. A lot of people who attend our trainings do so for their own self-development or spiritual growth. Our certification program is one of only a handful of curricula accredited as a school by the International Enneagram Association. It is currently being conducted virtually and combines live sessions with asynchronous learning. Again, find out more at awareness-to-action.com. Now, of course, since she's a much better person than he is, she is staying at this beautiful hotel, right, where they have caviar and champagne, and he's staying kind of at a nice enough place, but sort of a Motel 6 out by the airport, in a way, where she's staying at the Ritz. Let's see, being treated much better. The other thing we notice is that all of the judges, prosecutors, and everybody else in Judgment City adore her and want to be around her. All right.
Yeah, and he tells her, "Are you dating your defender? That can put you in trouble." So I mean, even that. He's always thinking about troubles that can happen.
Yes. He's suspicious that she's cheating on him before they even have a relationship with her attorney. All right. So they go to his first hearing, and he is, again, he has to sit there and watch film clips. Apparently, the feeling, I think they said, it's like being like watching something in 3D. So it's a very lifelike experience, sitting in a dark chamber with the prosecutor, the defender, and two judges. He's pretty freaked out by the whole thing, particularly because Bob Diamond and the prosecutor, and I'm blanking on her name, the actress, Lena, thank you, the actress Lee Grant, clearly don't like each other and are feuding, and she has a reputation for being, the best and most aggressive and hostile prosecutor in Judgment City. So the idea is they watch clips from the life where they would detail it by how old, year, month, and day of the person. So first clip is when he is 11 years, 4 months, and 19 days, and he's picked on by a bully. Again, he's not standing up to the bully, and the prosecutor is using this as an example of him being a coward, not standing up to the bully. So, of course, he starts to defend it. And Bob Diamond defends it, saying he's supposed to, get into fights with everybody. He's showing restraint, all of these explanations. And the argument keeps going back and forth between, it's not so much about the action, it's about were you given into fear or not. Comments on that part?
They keep coming up with alternative emotions. But even when he came up with frustration, he said, I guess. So it's always kind of trying to say the right thing to see if it works, doubting himself.
He's spinning scenarios here, right? Testing hypotheses on this. And there's a funny part there because as he's going on, at one point, Bob says to him, "Psst, wrap it up." Kind of cuts him off. So after the first day of the hearings, he goes out for sushi and meets a guy who made a lot of money in adult books, not reading them, but selling them, and also was proud of the fact that he coined the term totally all nude for the strip clubs out by the airport. Before he bought them, they just said nude, and he changed it to totally all nude. This guy was looking at 15 days and apparently had been there quite a few times. It probably wasn't going to get passed on either. Okay.
Yeah, but I thought it was funny that he got shot in a hunting accident because he was confused with an animal. And I would think, maybe a 6 in their worst nightmares would think of that. If I go hunting, I might get confused with an animal and get shot.
Yes. There is this theme of dying in stupid ways through the movie,
Yes.
right? Getting hit by a bus, confused with an animal, and shot by hunting,
Tripped.
falling and tripping and drowning in a pool. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and
All right.
the other thing is that when he's at the restaurant, the guys who are preparing the meal keep shouting, "Yeah, going to the bathroom."
9 days. 9 days.
And it's
Take a
like
pic.
it's like magnifying the things that get said, and which is like a horror movie for a 6,
Yes.
and like getting all this attention for the things that they're doing, and which could involve a bigger risk.
So he goes in for the second day of his trial, and Bob Diamond is not there. He got sort of tied up in the what was it, Tamer? You mentioned it before, where he was, where he got delayed. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. When he asked him the third day, why didn't you come? He said, "You will not understand it." And then when he insisted, he said, "I got trapped into my inner circle of thoughts." So
Right. So he has a substitute attorney played by Buck Henry, who was a very famous comedy writer in the 70s and 80s, who apparently uses 51% of his brain. And the prosecutor says, "Oh, is that documented?" Because they're all very impressed by that. But the guy doesn't really do anything, right? Daniel's upset that his attorney's not there, and the other guy says, "Oh, don't worry." The other guy's name is Dick Stanley in the movie, and he tells him, "No, don't worry. I'm very good at this. I know what I'm doing." But he doesn't say a word. And in fact, when they ask him, "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Stanley?" he goes, "No, I'm fine." Right. Which again taps into this fear thing, right? I mean, if you're on trial, would you want a defense attorney who just has nothing to say and leaves you to make your own case?
He was also scared from the relationship between the prosecutor and the defender, the conversation between the prosecutor and the judges. So he wanted even to postpone this day to another day.
Yes. Okay. So they show a couple of more scenes. I think it was funny. He was given the opportunity to invest in Casio before it became famous, and a $10,000 investment that he was considering making would have been ultimately worth $37.7 million. But he did not do it because he did not think that the Japanese would ever be able to make watches in an effective way. Instead, he invested in cattle.
So I think this taps into something that we see, that in the short term, it looked like the option of investing in cattle was a better option, kind of risk-free. But because he was saying that the Swiss or maybe the Germans could kind of build watches, but not the Japanese. And so he was trying to avoid a risk in the short term, but in the long term, it was a much worse investment, a lot riskier, because the cattle lost their teeth. I mean, they fell out.
So that was when they asked him whatever happened with the cattle. He said, "Well, I never got a really good story, but all I know is their teeth fell out." Right? So, all right.
And the way he was discussing the risk with his friend in the college, or the school, the university, roommate in university. He was like so sure that it will never happen. It was like he was so sure, and it will be $3, and we will bet on that, and we'll see each other's, and so. So and this has always happened, that I'm so sure about the risk, and I portray it in that way.
Yes.
when it's a 6.
Yeah, he's very aggressive in that scene when he's telling the guy, it'll never work. It's at 6 now. It'll be 3 in a month, when this gets announced, all of these things. And again, we see that bouncing back and forth between certainty and uncertainty that we see in 6s, right? It's that feeling of uncertainty and then grasping the first seemingly secure thing that comes along, and then eventually even abandoning that. So then they go on to show a series of 164 misjudgments, and she says half of them are fear-based, half of them are just stupid, right? And so they show him, doing all these dumb things, falling off a roof, cutting his table in half with a saw, etc. And at one point, even the judge starts laughing, right? Which is not a good sign for poor Daniel sitting there watching these things. Okay.
So they were destroying his self-confidence and self-worth completely in that scene.
Yeah, half of them fear-based, half just stupid. Was just a great line. So he meets with Meryl Streep that night, and they go to the Past Lives pavilion, where they get to watch up to their 5 previous lives. Now, do either of you know who the woman was who was the narrator at the Past Lives pavilion? If you remember, the woman shows up and everybody gasps. Do you know who she was and why that was in the movie?
I don't know why, but isn't she Shirley MacLaine?
Yeah, so it's Shirley MacLaine, who was an actress, or I think she's still alive, but she was a famous actress, Warren Beatty's sister as well, another old-time actor at this point. But she was famous for, in the 1980s, she wrote a couple of books about reincarnation, right? Believing that she had been, describing her previous lives. Right. So it was kind of a send-up, a self-parody for her to be the hostess at the Past Lives Pavilion. And so tell me about the lives that he is seeing and that Meryl Streep is seeing. Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, it's like complete contrast, the opposite. What he's seeing is like a tribe man running from a lion, and it's like a dinner, as he said.
Yes. So what were you in a previous life?
Yeah.
I was dinner, right?
Yeah. So it's expression of a total fear versus she was like, I don't know, someone
Prince
who is
Valiant.
Yes. Prince Valiant, who is like a courageous person who's like fighting and so on. So it's like a complete contrast between these 2 past lives.
And the old guy watching himself as a little girl playing with a doll was just, I thought, hilarious. What the hell is this?
Yeah, and even before they went in, she wanted to go, and he said, "I hear some people don't like it." So it's it could be bad. I don't want to go in there. I'm not so sure.
Yeah. Okay. So they go off and they have a nice evening. And you can tell by this point that they are, really falling for each other. But again, the thing we notice is that even though this is, feeling like the best relationship he's ever had, it also makes him nervous. Right. And it's at this point he says to her, I feel like a better person when I'm around you, but I don't know if it's you making me a better person or if I really am a better person, right? So again, it's like he's got this gift horse. We say don't look a gift horse in the mouth, and he can't help himself, right? The best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm still not trusting it.
And he says, maybe you're making me okay. And she says, you're not that okay.
All right. Okay. So next day, he's watching the footage of his speech, and Tamer already touched on this. He's about to give a big speech with hundreds of people in an auditorium. He starts to panic right before, and saying, "I can't go out there. I can't go out there." They drag him out there. He stands there frozen in front of all these people, and fortunately, I guess the fire department comes in and says there's been a gas leak, and they take everybody out, right? So they get into an argument about whether he was actually facing his fear there, because Bob Diamond says, he was terrified, but he went out there anyway. And the prosecutor says, yes, but he didn't say anything, right? So again, this for me speaks to this idea of courage is not binary, right? Cowardice is not binary. So yes, he summoned somehow the courage, even though he needed to be pushed, but he did go out on the stage, right? So he made it that far. So I guess he deserves some credit. Right? So again, this whole thing here is that it's everything's on a continuum this way, particularly when we're talking about sixes, it seems, rather than being binary.
Yes. So there's a line from the prosecutor who says his life would have taken a better direction if he had done it. And I think that this is what we see as the accelerator of collecting evidence of successes and things that I did do and had the courage to do and did well. And so I think that speaks to that part of the six.
Are you interested in learning more about our approach to the Enneagram? Go to awareness-to-action.com and check out our certification program. We offer a clear, concise, business-friendly, and science-minded approach while maintaining the depth of traditional approaches to the system. At Awareness to Action International, we're the leading innovators in the theory and pragmatic applications of this system to all aspects of the work environment, including leadership and personal development, team building, diversity and culture, and managing change. However, this approach is not just for the business world. A lot of people who attend our trainings do so for their own self-development or spiritual growth. Our certification program is one of only a handful of curricula accredited as a school by the International Enneagram Association. It is currently being conducted virtually and combines live sessions with asynchronous learning. Again, find out more at awareness-to-action.com. So they go out for dinner. They go out, him and Meryl Streep, and after that day of the trial, where it's the speech, it's the snowmobile thing where he had to crawl 3 miles with a broken leg after crashing that. And he actually defends himself pretty well when they ask him why he never rode another snowmobile again, right? So she frames it as, well, he never got back on a snowmobile after breaking his leg and having to crawl 3 miles. And he kind of stands up for himself, right? Did you remember what he said with this?
It was too long, but that he didn't like the smell, that his balls kind of... You felt them.
It got rattled all over the place, right?
Yes.
Yes, and it singed the hair off his thighs and all that sort of thing. So riding a snowmobile was a very unpleasant experience. So, but the premise was you could see him legitimately standing up for himself here. Say, wait a minute, I'm not taking this one, right? There's a reason for this, and I'm justified here. Which was, again, kind of a courageous point. So they go for the Italian restaurant, and this is the dinner where his prosecutor shows up. The waiter, what was the waiter's name? Anybody remember? I want to say Luigi, but I'm just making
Eduardo?
that up. Eduardo, thank you. Yes. Eduardo, says to her, do you like pasta? And she says, I love pasta. I'm going to bring you 3 pounds of pasta. Okay, which is a lot of pasta. And, I'm going to bring, says to him, do you like shrimp? I'm going to bring you 3 dozen shrimp. And then I'm going to bring you steak, and I'm going to bring you pies. And he's starting to panic because his prosecutor's there. And
before that, he says, aren't they high in cholesterol for the shrimp? and Eduardo says, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, but they're high in everything, right? Yes. Yeah, so again, it's this idea of, something wonderful is coming towards you, and you're looking for the negative part of it, right? You're going to get 3 dozen of the best shrimp you've ever eaten in your life. And for some reason, even though you're in Judgment City and you don't have to worry about gaining weight, you're asking about the cholesterol. All right. So Meryl Streep is having fun eating her pasta. This makes Daniel even more nervous. And again, it's an example of him being paralyzed, not being able to enjoy this incredible meal with this amazing woman because of his fear of being judged by the prosecutor. It gets us back to that quote that Tamer referred to about the effect of fear. Okay. So, and he even says when Eduardo is trying to bring him all the food, you're embarrassing me, right? You're doing all these things. So he walks her back to her hotel. She basically invites him up to her room, and he desperately wants to go, but he does not. Explain for me why he didn't want to go.
Just fearing from the consequences. And I think he didn't know what exactly the consequences, but he was still scared.
Yes, yes. And so what was interesting for me about it was that he said, if this is the most amazing thing ever, I'll never get to happen and have it again because, I'll never see you again after today. And if it's awful, I won't even have the joy of reliving the moment, right? So it's like, either way, if it's good or it's bad, it scares me. And so I'm going to stay paralyzed. So he ends up leaving, going back to his room. And what happens when he gets back to his room?
Yeah, I guess, Mario, this also demonstrates the self-doubts of the six, that I might really spoil this. I mean, it's already great, but I doubt myself. Maybe the way I'm thinking, the way I'm acting would make it worse. So it's better not to do anything. It's better not to seize the opportunity. So this self-doubt theme in the six.
Yes, absolutely. It can lead to a paralysis, right? Which happens here. Maria Jose, what happens when he goes back to his room?
Before he leaves the pies at the hotel, he doesn't take the pies with him.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even realize that.
I did. He leaves the pies at the Majestic.
9 pies, yes.
He goes back to the hotel and he changes his mind. He regrets what he did. He tries to call her, realizes that he doesn't know her last name. So there are 2 Julias at the hotel who have asked not to be to be disturbed in their rooms. So he leaves a message to both of them saying that he loves them.
Yeah, tell them I love them. So you got to wonder what the other Julia was thinking when she woke up, right? Yeah. So yes, he regrets his decision. He tries to correct it, but it's too late, and so he spends the night alone before his last trial day. Now they also know that they're not going to be able to see each other because they get whisked away immediately from the courtroom to whatever happens next, right? So this is their goodbye that and that he regrets having. So he goes for the next day. They make the case that he has tackled his fear and they use upgrading himself on a flight to Hong Kong from LA and paying an extra $3,000 that represented 1/3 of his net income. His net worth at the time after his divorce, as a mark of bravery, which of course is debatable, right?
That's kind of the counterphobic part of it as well. It's okay, I'm in trouble and okay, I'll do it anyway.
Yes. So he goes and he takes the trip that he was supposed to do with his wife instead of cashing in the ticket. He does that. But anyway, he is found guilty, I guess, after the trial.
Yeah, but they show the scene where he doesn't want to go up with her to her room at the hotel.
Yeah, yes.
As a sign of he hasn't really got over his fear. And he even says, I'm afraid. And
yes.
Or he's about to say, I'm afraid. But it's obvious that that's how he feels. And the prosecutor uses that scene to show that he's not ready yet.
Yeah, it was the final proof that he had not overcome his fears.
Yeah.
Tamer, were you going to say something there?
No. Actually, after that, with the transformation, this is the part that I wanted to discuss. But we're coming to that.
Okay, sure. So it was interesting so after the trial, after he is found guilty and he's going to be sent back to Earth, Bob Diamond is walking him to the tram and tells him, don't worry, you're not going to remember any of this. It feels bad now, but it'll be gone soon. And then he makes a comment that caught my attention where he says, good luck, kid. I've got a lot of faith in you.
And he says, you shouldn't get others get to you like this.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Say more about that, Maria Jose.
I go with the faith. I mean, you wanted to say something about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the idea is that, he says, I have faith in you. And again, it made me think of this, idea that we have talked about regarding the six, this idea of faith. Okay, as we have as an accelerator, what we call an accelerator for point 6, this idea of accumulating evidence. And we used to talk about it as faith, but faith rooted in evidence, right, of accomplishment. But again, that almost sounds contradictory because usually we think of faith as a lack of need for evidence. Okay. So when I heard that line the other day as I was watching this again, I started thinking of Kierkegaard's idea of the leap of faith, right, as a term we hear very often. That comes from the philosopher, the existentialist / Christian philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. And what he was saying there was more complicated than this idea of just making a jump of faith, right? A jump of faith is kind of like, or a leap of faith is kind of like, oh, well, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm going to try it, right? But Kierkegaard was talking about something much deeper here. And some people have translated what he said as a leap into faith. Right? But what he was talking about here is at some point, you have to just stop thinking about things and you have to say, I'm going to act. Right? And so this leap of faith is not so much about doing something that, might work or might not work. It's about saying, you know what, I've done all the thinking I can. Now I need to do. Right? So it's an abandonment of thinking. Not because I haven't thought about it, but because I've thought about it enough and I'm ready to move. Okay, which I think sets up what happens next. Right. So, what happens next? He's on the tram, and then what?
Yeah, I mean, he's on the tram and going to wherever he's going because he failed the trial. While he finds out that one of the other trams, Julia, is in it, but she's going definitely to a great place
somewhere different. Right?
Yeah. And here, when he starts to overcome his own fears and try to call her, try to say Julia, and she noticed that, and he started to go out of the tram. Well, with all the risk that there are other trams that they can really hit him, and there is some kind of spark that happens when he goes out of the tram.
And shocked.
Yeah, and take all of these risks until he reaches to the tram of Julia and try to get in, but he cannot. And we find out that the judges and the prosecutor and defender are watching from the screen all of these scenes. And now the defender would say, is this courageous enough? I think, I'm not sure, was it the defender or one of the judges? Is this
I think it was the
enough?
defender, right?
Yeah, brave enough for you? Yeah. And they say yes, and they give the order to open the door of the tram of Julia so he can join her track. It's like being upgraded to a better place because of this. Yeah.
Yes. So at the very last possible moment, he makes that leap into faith, takes action, stops thinking, and is rewarded for it. So he gets to go on. Now, I am always curious about where that tram was going. Do they remember what happened in Judgment City? Or, do they end up as, baby chickens somewhere who, have no relationship to each other? I don't know. But it's nice to think that they somehow lived happily ever after. One thing that we haven't talked about yet was the instinctual biases in this movie. We've touched around this a little bit regarding Daniel's instinctual bias. What are your thoughts on his instinctual bias here?
Yeah, it was hard for me, but I think he was either transmitting or navigating. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely a lot of navigating with some flashes of transmitting. Very concerned about status and what people are going to think of him, and dismissive of the preserving stuff. He was risk avoidant, but couldn't understand why people drove certain cars as if it was going to be the end of the world or something. So he didn't resonate with the preserving stuff. He was more attuned to status and identity and how he was perceived by other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tamer, thoughts?
Yeah. I've seen lots of navigating in him. How is he perceived most of the time is really what concerns him. Even some of his fears when he was negotiating his salary, I thought somehow it was like, I need to fit here, so I have to agree on whatever they are giving me.
Yeah. to set up that scene, he was having his wife role play with him, and he was saying, "No, I'm not going to settle for anything less than $65,000 a year." And he's acting big and bold. And as soon as he sits in the interview, the guy says, "I can offer you $49,000." He says, "I'll take it." And even the interviewer is shocked that he, that he accepted the $49,000. Yeah, so I would agree. He struck me as a navigating 6. The contradiction for navigating, or the contradiction that we talk about, is acceptance versus judging, right? Or it's connecting versus judging. It's the kind of the trap that navigators fall into, is evaluating and judging other people, and they were in Judgment City. He was being evaluated, he was being observed, he was being assessed. And he was aware of it. And that's all he was thinking about. How are people perceiving me? How are people going to think about me for eating all this shrimp? What are they going to think that I'm carrying 9 pies around?
And how he was judging Julia when she was eating.
Yes. Yes, this will reflect poorly on us. And some of the nice things about it, too, was, again, it belies some of the stereotypes about navigators, and how navigators are all about groups and wanting to be with people and have lots of friends and all that stuff. It was his birthday and he was alone, right? Because he viewed his work, his coworkers, as his family, he said, in the beginning of the movie. He was not a social person. And even during his time in Judgment City, he was not somebody who was, going out wanting to be with lots, kind of connect with a lot of people. But every night he would go out, right? Even the first night he's there alone, he doesn't sit in his hotel room and watch television, or, sit in the diner and eat all he can. He just wants to go out and see what's happening. And so he goes out navigating. So I think it was a really good navigating 6 theme here. Julia, again, probably a navigating 7 from my view. Some of the others, the other characters weren't clearly distinct. Certainly, I don't know. What do you guys think about Bob Diamond? Where would you put him? Any question on what you think is his subtype? I don't know about type, but how about instinctual bias? Yeah, he's clearly transmitting, right? So, yeah, he's really indifferent to what other people thought. He even said to him when he's leaving him, sometimes he says, "Hey, you have any questions? Give me a call," as he's walking away, and he says, "Well, I do have a question." He says, "Okay, see ya," and just walks off. So, all right, great. So, again, defending your life. I think it was a clever, entertaining, funny movie. Certainly not something everybody loves, but I don't know anybody that hated it. But again, the important thing here for our purposes is if you want to understand the 6, this is a movie to watch. Thank you for listening to the Enneagram in a Movie podcast, part of the Awareness to Action podcast network. Find out more about the Enneagram and our offerings at awareness-to-action.com. And if you enjoyed the episode, please go online and give us a review. We'll see you next time.